Hi, I'm Linda. I'm an alcoholic. And Mary Kay, this is turnabout really. Mary Kay asked me to do this after she so graciously spoke at my home group. So I asked her if she'd speak, and she said sure. And then, like fair play, turned it right around. So I've had about a month or so more to worry about this. And I've thought of lots of different versions of my story, and I'm like, nah. So this morning I prayed that I could tell the truth and I'd say something relevant. That's a big order, but we'll try. Anyway, my sobriety date is September 17th of 2006, and for that I am eternally grateful. I was born, I'm the middle child of 3 daughters. My parents are both really great people. My dad is 93. He's still alive and kicking and walks every day. And I mean, I'm really astonished. I hope I can be as together as he is when I get to be that age, if I make it. My mom and dad were married for quite some time well, not a long time, but sometime when they had us. My older sister is retarded. She had a thyroid deficiency at birth, and they didn't test babies then like they do now. And, when you have your first child, you don't really know how babies are supposed to be. And it's kind of like, oh gosh, I've got this baby, now what do I do? And so by the time they took her to a bunch of doctors and figured out what was going on, she was about 6 months old and not doing like other babies. And doctors kept brushing her off like a hysterical first-time mom. But, moms have good intuition. And so anyway, my older sister's retarded. She's about, I would say maybe about 6th grade level now, as far as, her ability to do things. Like she can read, she can write, she can talk on the phone, she can have a supervised kind of job, but her judgment sucks. If you tell her, I'll be your friend if you go do this for me, she'll do it. And as I was growing up, I was the second, and so Mom's focus was a lot on my older sister because she needed more help, really. And I was raised to be very self-sufficient, to be strong, to behave, to control myself, to take responsibility. And so what I did with that was I kind of watched out for my older sister because she was kind of like my younger sister, really, mentally. And I realized that pretty early on, that I could kind of get her to do whatever I wanted her to do, but also that she needed a little bit of protecting because kids in elementary school are kind of rough. And I remember lots of times where people would call her up and say things on the phone, and I'd say, don't ever call her again, click, like that. So there was that over-responsible side. And then I have a sister who's 7 years younger, and she and I are great friends. I am so grateful to have her in my life. And she's kind of my dad in the female younger version. And so it's kind of interesting. My dad's I've always thought one of the smartest people I've ever known. Now, and I don't think that's really a big stretch, because he was in the Air Force when I was young. We never traveled very much. I really only made 2 moves as a military child. So that's really great. Lots of military kids say they got moved, but we didn't. Dad was involved with the missile program, the guided missile program, and when he was in the military, in the Air Force, he achieved some fairly very high ranks. And most of the people who I knew who were my parents' friends were test pilots and scientists and rocket scientists, really, really. And so those are the kind of people who they hung around with. Not to say my folks didn't have a good time, they did. And I can remember lots of times that Dad would take trips, and because he was a pilot, he would fly a lot and to keep his hours up and stuff, and so they would go various places. So they'd run up to Maine, come back with a box of lobsters in a big crate. We'd get them out and let them race on the kitchen floor. Of course, lobsters don't know how to race, but we thought that was sort of cool. But anyway, so my family was really pretty normal. My mom spent a lot of time kind of watching out for my older sister, which I'd never felt jealous about that. I was kind of glad she didn't focus so much attention on me. I actually thought it let me get away with a whole lot more. I learned how to kind of be a false person. I learned how to be a manipulator real early. I learned how to please you or please my dad or do what I needed to do. But I also learned how, I learned how to lie to get what I wanted too. And so at a pretty early age, I knew how to play my parents. I knew how to get, to keep mom over here out of my way and be able to kiss up to dad and get dad to do whatever I wanted. So if if I got good grades or I did something good, then I'd always get congratulated. I'd always get encouraged. My dad was one of those people who said, you can do anything you want, just apply yourself. So I always had that kind of encouragement in my life, and thank goodness for that, because it gave me that, there was that other part of me that said, but wait a minute, I don't really think I have the magic keys to the kingdom. I don't really think I understand what the world's about. And there was always that little feeling in me, and I've heard people say this from the podium before, where they thought they just weren't quite enough for some reason. And I always felt like maybe, the day that they handed out, the answers in algebra, I must not have been there. Or, I just always felt like other people understood life better than I did, or other people could come back with a quick remark better than I could, or they could think faster on their feet than I did. And so there was always that feeling of you can do anything you want, that message, as opposed to, well, maybe that's not really true. Maybe I really am kind of a goofball. Which is probably really true, but as I was growing up, there were a lot of things that gave me the message that we were kind of at the center of the universe. I grew up in Southern California on the beach. I wish I could go back and tell that teenage girl not to have burned herself so bad in the sun, because I'm paying for it now. And a lot of other things, but there was a lot of other stuff that was going on that made us really feel like we were pretty it, like things like the Righteous Brothers and the Beach Boys and all those kind of groups were all people who we knew, and all people who kind of hung out with the older people around us. I know that I'm kind of jumping ahead. Excuse me if I jump around. I am a little nervous, very nervous, and that's just the way my brain goes anyway. So I'll jump around a little bit. But anyway, go on. Let me back up a little bit. My best friend in elementary school for years and years was named Patty, and the first time I can remember, my parents would give us drinks like little sips of champagne at Christmas and stuff like that, but that wasn't really drinking. That was just having a sip of champagne at Christmas, and that was nothing. But the first time I ever remember getting drunk and really meaning to get drunk was at the last day of 8th grade. We had elementary school, and then you went directly into high school. We didn't have middle school. And my friend Patty and another couple of girls, and I think my mom was playing golf. Now, I don't know why we thought we could get away with this, but we did. We all came home from school midday and got the stuff down out of the parents' liquor cabinet, sat on the kitchen floor, and passed it around. And we would, we got really drunk. We got really drunk and giggly and stupid and silly. We decided we'd walk down to the beach because she wanted to see Ralph, her boyfriend. So I can remember her going, Ralph, Ralph, and we were making barking noises like Ralph, Ralph. It was really stupid. But anyway, Patty on the way down there fell down and broke her front teeth out, and got up and kept walking, and we're just like, you're really hurt. You're really hurt. Oh, I want to go down and see Ralph. And we're like, okay. So we go ahead. We walk down to the beach. This is how dumb we were, and I think we were maybe 13, 14, something like that, and. So we walked down to the beach, and one of the guys who was one of the lifeguards saw us, and of course her mouth's all bloody, and we're drunk, and everybody's making a big fuss over us anyway because we were being so stupid. And so one of the lifeguards came over and decided that she needed to go to the hospital. And that was really kind of busted up our fun, but it was really a good idea. They got a hold of her mom, and they, all of that. we probably wouldn't have gotten smart enough to figure out that she was in trouble for a couple more hours, so we probably needed somebody to rein that back in. I don't remember hardly any consequences of that. I remember that her teeth, and that she had caps on them for a while, and then later on got pretty teeth, and that part of it, I don't remember. I'm sure I got in trouble and got grounded for it and all that, but it didn't seem like there was any big thing about it. It wasn't any big deal. As we were going forward, Patty and I used to kind of be partners in crime, and we took a lot of hostages. We'd have various boyfriends and dates, and we'd make up stories and exotic tales, and we'd lie till we couldn't remember what we'd said, and then giggle about it. We just thought it was so funny. And she and I we did all kinds of stuff, but we did a lot of, we were really, really close friends. And as time goes on, I'll kind of come back to her, but moving forward, I can remember going to lots of parties and going to places where we were drinking. I can remember being picked up on dates with a case of beer in the guy's car, and we were going to a party. That was really common. We lied all the time and said we were going to a dance, or we were going to this or that, and we were really going to somebody's apartment to all sit around on the floor and drink like we always did. And I can remember one night I came home, and my date walked me to the door, and my mom switched on the porch light and was like there, and I was like, oh no. And we were so busted because we were drunk, and he left, of course, instantly. And I was like, came in the house, Mom is grilling me, and she says, Sherm, she's drunk. And I'm like, oh no, I'm not drunk. And I passed out on their bed. So, anyway, I can remember like several times where stuff like that happened, or where I'd climb out my balcony and walk down the hill and meet people, and then just walk down to the beach. We would sit in the beach parking lot in cars after school, and somebody'd have a beer and they'd pass it over to your car, and then like that. So we just did that all the time. It wasn't any big deal. I grew up with in that whole era of and where I was of surfing, and so I had a 9/6 balsa board, which was huge and heavy. But at that point in time, that's what we did. Every summer before I was old enough to have a surfboard, I had a rubber raft, a new raft every year, and it was those really hard kind, the really, really hard ones, so you could knee paddle on them and stuff, and we'd paddle out, just to tell you how crazy we were, we'd paddle out to the fishing barge, tag the fishing barge through all the fishing lines and all the fishermen yelling at us, and then paddle back. And that was the first day of summer. That's always how we started summer, was like, kind of like this chicken out contest to paddle out there. I skied Catalina Channel Race for years. I had legs like Popeye's arms. My dad, I wouldn't let him drive me anymore because he'd drop me in the channel and laugh. He'd go off, and then I'd be 15 minutes, I swear it's probably 2, but it seemed like 15, that he'd come back to pick me up, and the little shark fins are out here and stuff. So there was lots of stuff about my growing up that was really fun. I had a really good time. There was always that part about you have to be responsible, you have to control things, and I grew up to really learn how to do that really well. I learned how to manage when I was drinking, so that I went to work. I never missed work. I always went to work. I might have had a horrible hangover, but I always pulled it together. There were other things that happened during I'm kind of skipping around, but backing up a little bit. When I was in high school, we did things like go to the prom in not my dad, but my date's dad's car, and we were driving a Corvette one time up in LA, drinking beer in the car, and somebody, basically a civilian, pulled us over. We're like, what? We're just having a beer. It's no big deal. I didn't think there was anything. I didn't really think it was bad. I really didn't. I knew, but I didn't think of it. It was like I knew better, but it just didn't matter. When I was in college, when I first got to college, and I'd had boyfriends and stuff in high school and stuff. When I first got to college, I met this guy. We were playing baseball with bisqueware, greenware in the ceramics kiln, stuff that had blown up in the kiln. We were just playing baseball with it, just cracking it all over the ceramics outside yard because we were going to clean it up. But I met him, and for some reason there was just this immediate attraction, and we were just like inseparable, just like that, inseparable. And for the next couple of years, I followed him around the country and he followed me around the country. And I went to college at UC, that started in Orange County, and I went to college at UC Santa Cruz, which is up Northern California. He was up there. This is also the Vietnam era, so everybody was worried about getting drafted or was drafted. My high school sweetheart had gone into the Air Force because he didn't want to be drafted. This guy had just finished law school at USC and was going to, and was in between. He wasn't in school, and he got drafted in the Army, and they realized how smart he was, and they put him into an OSI, kind of a Secret Service kind of arm of the Army at that time. So, but before he got taken away, kind of, there was all this thing at that point in time that, it was kind of like two lives. I'm being a student during the week, I'm getting good grades, I'm going to a really great school, I'm loving the school part of it, loving it. And then there's this part about being this sophisticated girl trying to be a woman, hanging out with him on the weekends and going places with him, kind of being like grown up versus being kind of hippy-dippy at school, because that was that whole era, that was that whole time. Drugs are not a part of my story. I guess I know it was all around me, but I guess through the grace of God, a lot of things happened. I had a real good friend who was in the dorms, who was like, we had co-ed dorms, but different floors for men and women. And one of the guys who was a very good friend of mine OD'd on acid one night, and they took him out in an ambulance, and he never came back to school. And his brain was fried. He was unable to take care of himself in any way, and he was a vegetable. And I think seeing that happen to him, how horrible that was for all of us, but more horrible for his family and for him, of course. But it was one of those moments where I said, you know what, that doesn't look like that's going to be any fun. I'm not doing that. And there are other things that happened. One of my best friends got pregnant, and that didn't look like a whole lot of fun either. And I decided that really wasn't a road I wanted to go down either. And you know how sometimes people will things will happen, and you go, oh my God, I am vulnerable. I really don't have, I'm not bulletproof. Something could happen. When I was growing up, kids got drunk, they got pregnant, or they got in wrecks. That was kind of the worst stuff that happened. There wasn't a lot of drugs in my high school, although there was some. But, it just wasn't part of our lifestyle. And then my parents made this brilliant move when I was a sophomore in high school and decided to get me off the beach and move to Orange County. Well, despite what you guys may have heard about the housewives of Orange County or all the glamour and the glitz, when I moved there, my school's mascot was called the Tillers. Now, those are farmers, tillers. I mean, I'd gone from Bright Lights big city to the farm, and I hated it. I hated it. And I didn't have any friends, and all those years growing up, I'd lost all those contacts, all those good buddies. I didn't know who was who and who went with what. I didn't have all those connections that you have when you've lived someplace a long time. Well, anyway, I've kind of jumped around a lot too here again, but my friend who I'd met in college, he got sent. First of all, he got sent to Korea, and then he got sent some other places, and I never knew where he was because he could never tell me. And about 2 years, a year and a half later, I came home one time, and my old high school boyfriend's mom, who I'd been friends with all through, I called her. I just called her out of the blue. I probably, there was probably some God stuff going on with that. But anyway, I called her, and she says, oh, you should write to him. He says all he gets are spider webs in his mailbox. And so I said, okay. So I wrote him this really pretty letter and put all these pictures on it, did this real elaborate thing. Well, we got back together. I don't know if I kissed him first or my mom did, when he came to my house to pick me up for a date. And we got married 3 months later. And we were married for 25 years. I have 2 wonderful children, a girl and a boy. They're in their 30s. They have their struggles. We're saving seats for them, everybody. We're saving their seats. Anyway, the thing that was good in that marriage lasted for about 15, maybe 17, 18 years. We did a lot of great stuff together. I love building houses and all that stuff. We did a couple of those. I got to ride horses with my daughter as she was growing up, which was a dream I always had as a kid, is being able to have a horse. So, I had to wait a while to get my wish, but I got it finally. We had a lot of good things in that marriage, but we had a lot of pain and he drank like I did, and at that point my drinking had kind of gotten, I would drink, but I would try to control it. I would always be the one who'd think that I had to take the kids to the skating party, or I had to do this or that. So we would let Dad spin out, and then once he was down for the count for the evening, asleep on the couch or whatever, then I'd take him to the skating party, or I'd do whatever. I can remember lots of times where I would try to really control it, where I would water down my glass of wine, or where I would really, I did everything I could to kind of manage and keep it together, mostly for appearances. Mostly I just wanted it to look good. I didn't realize that we didn't have any God in our house. I didn't even think about it. We had a lot of things, but we had nothing. My husband was the kind of person who, and I did it too, where we'd have these alcohol-fueled arguments, never physical, but arguments, and then the next day we'd be very contrite, and the next day we'd apologize, and for 3 or 4 days we'd be good, and then and then it'd be back on again. And I would drink to the place where I realized I had overserved myself, and I'd always be passing the mark. I'd always be way too far, and then I'd try to act like I was okay. So there was a lot of fake in it, just a lot of fake in it. I used to walk around and just say, I'm really in a lot of pain, and that was kind of a theme for years and years and years for me. But it looked good. We had a lot of friends. We did a lot of stuff. But I finally got to the place where I was afraid to have people over, because I knew that if we were having a party or we were doing something, that he would get drunk as we were getting ready. And so, gradually our social life kind of backed off, and it became, I'd take my daughter to the stables in the afternoon, and we'd go ride our horses, and then we'd get home. Dad would take my son to soccer or water polo practice or whatever, and we'd get home in time, hurry home so we could feed Dad so he wouldn't get too drunk. I can remember being very disappointed at myself, and I can remember thinking that my idea about what life should be wasn't happening, and I think my kind of definition of that inner pain was kind of like my expectations were here and my experience was here, or really my expectations were here and my experience was here, and all the middle of that was discontent. It was all discontent, and I couldn't figure it out until after I got sober what was wrong. What that was that, I had these lofty ideas about how things should be, and reality just wasn't matching up at all. I learned in here, too, something I thought was really valuable early on, was that my opinion about what's happening is what causes my reaction. So my opinion about it might make me fearful, or might make me worry, or might make me scared, or whatever. And then that would set in motion a whole snowball of how to cover it up. or how to medicate it or anesthetize it away. So, again, trying to be in control, trying to take care of things. It's really an asset to me in my business. I've been in the same business for almost 40 years. And learning how to manage, control myself, keep my emotions in check, all of that I do in my business, and it helps me a lot. I try to be a balance for people, but inside sometimes I was really ripped apart. I can remember when I got divorced from that man in 1993. I can remember being afraid I was going to be a bag lady. I'd worked all these years and I'd made money and I'd been, self-supporting. And I thought, I wasn't self-supporting. We put our money together. I don't mean it like that. But I was afraid I couldn't make it. I didn't have that confidence, and I applied to get a loan to purchase a house for myself when I was first getting divorced, and I got approved. And I was like, oh, I did it by myself. I got approved. It was like such a big deal. And that was really the beginning of me saying, maybe I can do this. And when I first moved into my new house, I was talking to one of the ladies I worked with, and she was in AA. And I didn't know very much about AA, but I knew I had a problem, and I knew that I was leaving one behind, and I wasn't taking another alcoholic with me to move into my house. And so I decided I would quit drinking. And I used to lie from the podium and say that I stayed sober for a year, and I realized not too long ago that was a lie. I stayed sober for about 9 months. Sometimes we remember as much as we're able to remember at the time, and that's what came out of me before. During that period of time, I went to Al-Anon. Actually, I went to Al-Anon for 2 years, and I loved Al-Anon. Al-Anon saved me. It gave me an opportunity to kind of get honest with myself. It started me in the path. I had a sponsor. I worked the steps. I did the whole thing the Al-Anon way. I had the best kind of cleansing with my kids early because of that process, where I invited them over for dinner. My son lived with me, but my daughter over for dinner, and we talked and talked. And I remember us laying on the bed and crying and talking for until really late at night, and just really letting go of all of that stuff. And I was so sorry for what I'd allowed happen in my household, and that I had not ever really understood better what it was doing to them. So it really helped me heal, and it helped them to heal. And it put us in a place where we were on the same kind of wavelength now. And it wasn't against Dad or anything else. It was just for us. It was meant as a way of giving us, opening up some communication, and for me just to tell him I was sorry. I remember somewhere in there, this is one of the favorite takeaways I had from, I think it was from Al-Anon somewhere. Somebody told me to make a list of all the things that I worried about, and then to mark off the ones that I could do something about. Okay, I'll do that. I did it. And then there was this whole list left. There was almost all of it I couldn't do anything about. And they explained to me that was why I needed God. And I went, no kidding. That makes so much sense. And so, that's an exercise that I do even today sometimes. I'll write down, I'll say, God, I'm worried about this, that. And then what can you do about it? You can let go and you can get out of the way. And that's what I learned. And it was like, what a miracle. What an absolute miracle to have that. I had a lot of times where things like that would happen. Most of it I forgot. Most of it I didn't hold, but that was one. And I know sometimes when you come to a meeting, I know it happens to me. Somebody will say something, and you'll get one like that, and you'll go, oh my God, I can use that over and over and over again, and I do. For me, AA was, let's skip forward here. I got divorced. I moved to North Carolina in another relationship, and my drinking wasn't too bad at first, and really for a long time there it wasn't too bad. And it gradually, the thing with this disease is it's so progressive that it's easy to ignore it, kind of. It's easy to deny it because it kind of creeps, and it's, that cunning, baffling, and powerful in our big book, I never really got that at first. I thought that sounded kind of too strong. It's so true. It's so true. It is cunning, it is baffling, it is powerful, and I thought I could handle it, and I couldn't. Getting off the merry-go-round, the suffering of being in pain all the time was something that took me a long, long time. I knew I drank too much, and there were various things that happened that one of the things that really kind of crashed was I broke up with the guy who I moved here with, and actually kind of really weird, another one of those God things, the guy that I knew from college who'd gone all over the place and stuff, he'd called my mom. And my mom called me one day. My mom was in California. I was here. My mom said, guess who called me the other night? I can't remember. He gave me his phone number. I don't know what I did with it. But I said, Mom, I'm going to crawl through that phone and choke you if you don't find it. You know? And so I called him, and I went to California not long after that and had a date with him. And it was really, one of those dates where you sit in the car until 4 o'clock in the morning and just talk. It was really good, and then anyway, I'm kind of mixing this up a little bit, but I'm skipping some stuff. We got back together, and we're seeing each other a lot. I was going to California a lot. He was coming here a bit, not as much. He was sole caretaker of his mother, so he was there with Mom most of the time, and every time he'd come out here, she'd get sick or have to go to the hospital or something. She manipulated him all of her life. And at the point when he wanted to get married, I kind of realized that I was going to be second to Mom, and I didn't really like that a lot. And I also realized something else, and it took me a couple of times to realize this is a guy who doesn't hardly drink, and he's really, really smart. And I drank one night. I was at his house in California, and he was grilling and stuff, and he opened this really lovely buttery Chardonnay, and I sat there and drank almost the whole bottle while he was cooking. Now, I had controlled it. See, this is why you never marry somebody until you know them for a year and you really know them, because I always controlled it when I was around him. I could fake it. I could control it. I could keep from drinking. I could be good, and always found my best behavior. And that's what you see, like those first 6 months of a relationship. You see that good behavior, and then the real person comes out. Sooner or later, that real person comes out. And I remember him saying to me, I wanted to have some of that or something. It was nice, but it was, I felt it. And I thought to myself, and he said to me, please don't ever do that again. And I went, And I thought, you know what? If I marry him, he's going to figure this out. He's going to figure out who I really am, and I can't do that because I love you. That was really my reason. And I told him I couldn't marry him right then, and that, and I went home, cried my way across country, came back, and really power drank for a year. Really, I really drank a lot for about a year. But all this time I'd been drinking, but that year was really a terrible year. And at one point I was given this question. I was in a coaching program, and the question was, if you could change one thing in your life that would make the biggest difference, what would it be? Like that. I said, quit drinking. I knew it. I didn't have to think about it. It was here. I knew that was the one thing that would make the biggest difference in my life. And it took me a little while, maybe about 2 weeks, a week or two, not very long, to come to my first meeting. And I remember I went to the hospital when it was the big room, the big auditorium with the stage. And I remember Donnie was in the back, and he was standing up, and he's this tall guy with this long kind of robe on. And I remember him standing up back there in the back, and I thought, this is sort of weird, and these people are on the stage, and it was kind of weird. And I don't really remember too much else except Donnie from that meeting. But and now I'm not afraid of him, but then I was. But it was like, okay, it's time to get off the merry-go-round. It's time to stop going around saying I'm in so much pain all the time. And it's time to take that momentary short hit to end that life of suffering. And I couldn't see how I could ever have a relationship with myself, with anybody else, with anything else if I didn't get sober. And I really, it was like I was done. I was just plain old done. I had tried lots of other halfway measures. None of them worked. And that was it. And actually, I kept alcohol in my house for a long time, not because I thought I might want to use it, but I didn't feel like it was a threat to me. I had friends who came over and would have a drink, and I would just leave it because I never drank that stuff anyway. I'd never had scotch in my life. I've had a bottle of scotch in my house for years, a friend of mine's bottle. It just didn't interest me. And so when I was done, I was done. I was really lucky because that craving was removed from me. I just was at the place where I was like, I can't go back there anymore. I hate myself so much. I hate my life so much. I just can't do it. Now, on the outside, you would never have known it. Never have known it. I had a couple of really good friends who were very worried about me, who didn't know what to do with me, and they were really scared for me. But other than that, really, I kept it pretty down low, pretty undercover. There are some things that I realized about having a higher power, and that Al-Anon stuff from way back came back to me real quick, and I'm listening to the steps and listening to all this is all familiar to me. And I realized that other people had a God that was big enough to handle my stuff too. I didn't really have a God of my own, but I knew that that whoever, whatever it was big enough and had always been guardian angel on my shoulder, always kept me from, I never got a DUI, I haven't had one yet, from a lot of things happening that could have happened, but I just was, I was just really blessed. Anyway, I went back to that. I think I'll let him. I think I'll get out of the way and I'll just let him. I'll take my hands off the steering wheel and quit thinking my ideas are the best ideas, and I'll just let go and let God. There were some things in here that happened. There was a day, and I think I know I called my sponsor and I said, it's all right. You know that song, It's All Right? Have a good time, because it's all right. You know that one? One day I woke up with that in my head, and I just went, you know what? It's all right now. It's always been all right. It just, I didn't know it, and it was all right. And I was at a point where there was still the other isms going on. My brain was still stupid, still is some days too. I still work too much. I still medicate with staying busy. I still have a lot of things that I work on. And I don't necessarily avoid life like I did doing that early on. And I catch myself at it a lot faster now, and I stop and I say, okay, it's time to breathe. It's time to sit back and take a breath. Just because you feel like you're under pressure or you're under a deadline doesn't mean you have to freak out. Slow down. And that's helped me so much. And I'll use the Serenity Prayer a lot. I use the Serenity Prayer probably every day in one way or another, because there are always those moments during the day where I feel like I need a little guidance here. I need a little help, and I need to just chill for just a minute, step back, and let my higher power come in and give me that energy or that guidance that I'm really looking for. The power greater than myself to restore me to sanity was a really, when I finally got that place where I said, I need a power greater than myself to restore me to sanity, because I'm nuts. I've done some things that are really nuts and been nuts for a long time. And that power, I knew I was powerless. I knew I couldn't do it on my own. And that power kind of slowly dripped on me from all of you guys. I'd sit in the rooms and I'd hear things, and I'd be thinking at first what brilliant thing I needed to say. And then gradually I realized I had nothing brilliant to say, and furthermore I had nothing brilliant to think. So I might as well just listen. And you guys just kind of hugged me and took care of me and helped me so that I could gradually make that change. One of the things that's helped me so much is sponsorship. Having a good sponsor, having somebody who doesn't buy my bullshit, who lets me say what I need to say, but then says, have you thought about, and in the book, big book it says, and all those things, and I love that. because I don't go there by myself. I don't automatically know how to find those answers, and that's what a good sponsor's for, is to help and guide and love and care. I've had the wonderful privilege of sponsoring women. Not all of them have stayed sober, but that's not my job. My job is for me to stay sober. I feel like that has given me the opportunity to grow and to trust and to care and to give of myself and pay back in a way that I've been given so much, and I'm so grateful. And I've been able to form those kinds of bonds with other human beings. I have gotten to learn, how to be more authentic, how to trust myself, and to really, not take myself so seriously. I used to always think I had to be perfect, and that would carry over into everything I did. And when that expectation didn't meet the experience, I'd always feel less than. And so I learned that, I didn't have to be perfect, and if I made a mistake, that I could say I did it. That was so hard. I always judged that would be weak, or that would be, just really kind of showing my underbelly that I made a mistake. And I learned that, people actually can respect that, and that it's okay. And if I say that's my bad and I'm sorry, okay, it's over. And that's really been a growing thing for me, and I hope that the people who are around me, sometimes I don't let people down. Today I don't, if I say I'm going to show up, I show up. If I say I'm going to do something, I do it. If I forget, then that's a problem, but that's why I have a phone that puts my appointments in it these days. I'm always going to be an alcoholic, always. But alcoholism doesn't have me anymore. I could go back there really fast. All it would take is to quit doing what I'm doing, and I know that. But I know that as long as I keep doing what I'm doing, and I try to tell the truth when I know what it is, as soon as I know what it is, if I try to clean up my mess and go to the source whenever I have a complaint, instead of complaining or whining over here, I go to the source and I say, I have a question. I can't understand what's happening in our relationship. If I'll go to the source and clean it up right away, life works. It's the 10th step. That's what it is. And it took me a long time to understand some of the things you guys say. There are little things that people say, like let go and let God. I had my death grip on the steering wheel, and I would hear let go and let God, and I'd go, well, it will wreck. We'll run into the wall. And I never could really let myself go enough to just trust that if I let go and let God, and then at some point something happened, and I realized that God always was driving the bus. You just been pretending. And that was a big one for me, because I realized all those things, those little things along the path that happened in my life, had kept me out of trouble, or kept me from getting hurt, or put me in a position where something would happen that was really better than what I thought I could have even dreamed of. So it was God doing for me what I couldn't do for myself all along, even when I was drinking. All along, there was always those things that happened. And the guy that I didn't marry because I loved him, we kind of got back together again after that, and not too long ago, a year or so ago, and his mom finally died at 97. At 97. Isn't that terrible? And I thought, oh good, we're going to finally have a chance. Okay? Well, unfortunately, he very soon thereafter developed prostate cancer, and he died in March. So it was really sad, because we were always like, we were like, but in a way I can see how even in that, my higher power was looking out for me and looking out for him. And sometimes the things we think that we want, and one of my favorites, I got two people to quote tonight. You guys, they're both from in the rooms. One's not with us anymore, though, is Richard Page. And my favorite one of his is, it's not so much that I don't get my way, it's that I think I have a way. I love that, and it's been one of those pearls I've taken home. And the other one, and I saved the best for last, is Michael. And I never understood what you meant, Michael, and I always thought it was kind of repetitious. And in fact, I even mocked you a little bit sometimes because you'd say, sober through the grace of God and the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I got it now. And thank you. Thank you very much.